Perfect.
Hello everyone, welcome to Draw Talk. I'm Nolan, and today we're going to be drawing hands. I'm going to be showing you how to do hands. This is a bit of a different setup if you haven't noticed. Normally I just kind of dub over this stuff, and I don't think that format is going away. For these more tutorial-based videos, this is probably what's going to work best. Now, as I mentioned before, we're going to be drawing hands. The magical ends of arms that humans have. Grabby gems, if you will. Hands are fun to draw. Using hands, you can get a wide variety of expressions based purely on the positioning alone, based on how it's tensed, based on the angle of the fingers, how stressed they look, all that. It's all very important. The problem with that is that there's a lot of responsibility when it comes to drawing hands. And I don't, of course, mean that, people are tempted to draw a middle finger. I mean more that it's just difficult. There's so much to take into account. Hands seem like something that at a first glance you're like, I could draw that. And then once you go to do it, there's so many nuances and all that by the time you're done, usually you notice that one or two things are wrong. It took me a long time to warm up for this video. I mean, as you can see, not that page. Here's some hands. Here's some hands. That was all just to warm up for this video. Just for the sake of showing you guys how hands are made. I'm just gonna break down the basics for you. You've probably heard this before, but when it comes to drawing, especially when drawing people, it is easiest to break things down into basic shapes and then build up from there. Now, I know most people just want to jump right into it, but the thing is, if you try to jump right into it, you're probably going to end up with something that looks like, like that. That's not bad, actually. No, can't do that. When it comes to a hand, we're going to say we're going to be drawing this hand. You have to know what the general geometric shapes of it are. If you're drawing this hand, say we're drawing it looking at the palm. I usually do what almost looks like an off pentagon. It almost comes to a point up here, but not quite. You can make it come to a point. It's all up to your style. You got just kind of like this pentagon shape, right? I'm going to make that taper just a little bit less over there. Slightly rounded off, but it still almost has 5 sides. 4 if you count this as 1, but I usually count it as 5. This is going to be this part, obviously. Now, from there, you got all these 4 digits on top, and you got your thumb over here. Now, when I do the thumb, I typically do the base of the thumb by just doing this egg shape. A friendly egg. Just a friendly little egg. Now, the thing is, when it comes to this, it's not always going to be firing off in yonder direction. Sometimes, if you got it out at an angle, it's going to be firing off in yonder direction. But, for the sake of this, we're going to say it's relaxed, in which case it's going to be pointing up slightly, as you can see right here. Now, we're just going to do the base right there. Do this kind of thing, just to show you that, it's in 3-dimensional space. Just to kind of help you out. And then, we're going to add all the digits. Now, when I do this, I start by adding circles. Do a circle right there, and then I do a circle right here, right here, right here, and a little pinky over here. Now, here's the thing. At this point right here, this little apex of this pentagon shape is where this finger meets. It is roughly right at the top, kind of slightly on the half point there. This one's over to the side. This one obviously falls over here, and then you got the pinky down at the very, very end. Now, when it comes to the pinky, you can break this section off into its own little thing. That is also completely up to preference. And for the sake of this, I'm going to be using that as a demonstration because the pinky is a different length from all of these. All of these are slightly different lengths, but if you look, for the most part, they're all pretty much identical. The main difference is just that this one sits higher on the hand than the ones over here. So, what we're going to do is block in what's kind of like a mitten shape. Start like that, and then remember that these fingers are just a little bit smaller than the actual palm of the hand. So you don't want anything that goes out too far. So that's about there. So I'd say where we have it right now is pretty good. Now, we're just gonna do kind of another round it off a little bit like that. Notice how it slopes more down over here than it does over here. That's just because this finger usually sits a little lower than that one, looking at it dead on. Then of course we got the little pinky just kind of hanging out over here. This guy comes up roughly to the digit right here. So real quick, I'm going to map out these digits by doing a this and a this. That way we know where all these little folds come in. There are 3 knuckles on each finger, excluding the thumb. There's 1, 2, and 3 right at the base. 1, 2, 3. The knuckle, or the thumb, only has 1, 2, and then the third one's kind of like built in over here, so it really only has 2. Now that we've got the pinky and this all mapped out, we're going to go to the thumb. Now, for the thumb, we're just going to have it at an angle like this, simply for the sake of the demonstration. As you can see, the thumb comes up just below the knuckle over here. So we're going to place that right about there. Make sure that when you're doing thumbs, you really have that bow in the back of it. It really is quite noticeable. Some people it's less noticeable than others. It's all up to who you're drawing. But usually it's pretty noticeable. Now we have a basic hand. From there, we're going to block in all the smaller details. From right here, I like to just kind of draw a line. Let's get all these fingers in. Now you don't want to make this middle finger too thick. You want to make sure that it's about the same as all these. Once you have it like that, you're going to go up, and you're kind of going to round it off. Just like that. And look, you got yourself a hand. Pretty basic, not the greatest, but it's a start, okay? Now this is a very vanilla pose. When you get into more dynamic poses, you really need to start thinking of all of these as less of straight lines and more of cylinders. By that I mean, you got your little thing on top, then it goes there, and then it rounds off at the bottom. It takes up 3-dimensional space. It's not something that just exists on a flat plane. That's something you really need to take into account while drawing, is you're not just making something flat. You're creating something that exists physically. You need to think of it like that. Drawing, you should be more in the mindset of sculpting. Does that make sense? Do you get what I'm saying? Hopefully you do. After you get this, of course, you can add in all the little details. You can add in those little things, the little squiggly lines that people have. I mean, you can go in, erase all these if you want. I'm going to leave them in, though, just because, for the sake of the demonstration, it looks better. You can add in your little fingernails and all that. It's completely up to you. Usually my hands don't have fingernails when I draw them. I just don't like it. Just a stylistic choice. Now, most people, as I was talking about earlier, they connect this while drawing. I'm doing it simply for the sake of the presentation, because it makes it a little bit easier. But on a normal hand, it is not that prominent. A lot of the times, I see this a lot in cartoons, and it's fine in cartoons. But suppose you got your hand, again, make sure to construct your hands so they look like this. And they're doing this, and they got their little thumb, because maybe they're proposing a question or something, okay? And usually I see them draw in this line right here. Like there's a little ridge right here. And while there is, it's not really visible until you're practically at a 90-degree angle. There really isn't any reason to be drawing that in. And even then, it doesn't go like that. It goes more like that, because it follows along the ridge right here and meets with the thumb. But it's so faint, you're never really going to see it, unless if you're squeezing your hand together like that, which you're never going to do. Another tip. This is what I would consider kind of more of a male hand. Usually when drawing hands, you want to give them a little personality. If you're drawing a big burly, tough character, I'll usually take their fingers. Suppose you have a finger. We'll break it down into the cylinders for the sake of the demonstration. Here's your finger. Looks great, right? And usually, if it's a tougher character or like a guy or something, I'll block off the end of the fingers. Make it have a really blunt shape to it. That's just a stylistic choice. It's completely up to you. Female characters usually have a much pointier fingertip. Usually their fingers are a little more slender. Like I said before though, it's all up to you. You don't gotta do it this way. It's your little world that you can create anything in. Now, I'm going to go over this a bit more. Suppose you're drawing it from the side. What you get is a same basic shape. Comes up to a point, but now you're looking at something a little more like that. A little thicker than that, but pretty slim. You want to think of this pentagon shape as less of just a flat object and more as like a weird pentagonal rounded off chunk. Hope that helps. And then from there we can add in the thumb, which, as you'll notice, sticks out a little bit. That little thumb base. Not a lot, but just a little bit so that it's noticeable. And it kind of wraps around the side over here and connects down at the bottom. Like that. Again, we're going to have the thumb firing off in that direction, simply for the sake of the presentation. Then you got all your digits up here, of course. There's that first one. The other one's kind of hidden away. Got all those other ones in the back over there. They're not gone, but they're just out of sight. Usually when drawing hands, you want to draw the digit closest, because otherwise you're going to end up doing a lot of erasing. So, we're going to start off with the thumb. You got your little thing like that. Trying to keep in relative proportions with the last thumb we drew. Well, the last hand we drew, rather. So there's that. And then you've got this. For the sake of this, we're going to have him doing a pose kind of like that. You got that. You got that. Something like that. Breaking these down into basic cylinders as you do. Then you got this one, which is just slightly taller than the other one. So you'll notice it protrudes out just a little bit. Put it like that. And then that other one just kind of goes along like that. Usually, when you got this finger pointed out, these other fingers kind of curl behind it. There's a natural flow, you see. There's this line up here, obviously, like we drew, but then there's the other ones that follow through all the digits and round off like that. And they all seem to kind of just meet over at this point, over here and over here. These are, of course, imaginary, but they help out if you're trying to create a good flow. So I'm going to draw these in to where they look as natural as possible, as natural as I can make them at least. Like that. You'll notice they all have this kind of flow line through them. It goes like that, and then it goes like that. Goes all the way through the knuckles over there and over there, and as you can see, they all kind of meet somewhere along here. So usually, if you want to, for the sake of flow, just take 4 lines and just kind of like whop, 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 whop. As you go, obviously it is not as simple as that, but as you go along and as you learn a little bit more, you get more used to it, okay? Now suppose you're drawing a clenched fist, something a little more dynamic, okay? And I think this is going to be the last thing for today. You want to really stress these lines. You want to make sure that rather than having rounded off little knuckles like that, maybe you got something like that, a little more pointy. It really conveys action. You want to maybe add a little bit of gritty detail in there. That's a knuckle. I'm going to show you the actual hand though. Make sure I'm still in frame. I'm good. We're going to be drawing a fist just kind of from the side, like it's coming out to punch something, you know? What you start with is that same basic pentagonal shape, but it's a bit folded, like a strange hot dog this time. Got a bit of a crease going down it like that. You won't see that obviously because it's tucked away, but the center of your hand does kind of fold, as you can see. So from there, we're just going to do the same thing. You got the placement of your thumb, which comes up a lot. We're going to do the wrist over there, just for the sake of it. Got this part, obviously. And then over here, bring that down a little bit. I drew that way too thick. Over here, you got all your fingers. Maybe this one, maybe it's kind of like a 3 3/4 angle, slightly less than that. So you can see the second knuckle in there. Maybe one down here, maybe one down here. This will go down like that, like so. Connect over there, like that. And then maybe this one, just kind of going in a slightly different direction. This is a janky hand. I'm gonna try that again, actually. Homer, quit. Stop. Alright, had to retry that because the first one ended up a little weird. I am not perfect at drawing hands. I'm just trying to help you. I'm pretty bad at drawing hands, actually. I'd go as far as to say that I'm awful, but I'll show you what I know. So, we got that again. Get these blocked in, of course. And this knuckle is just a little bit higher than the first one. This one is just a little bit higher than that. And to really get at that dynamic pose, you don't really want all your knuckles kind of lined up. You really want to have them kind of varied in space. I'll get more into that when we do a frontal view of the fist. But the same rules kind of apply. This kind of comes down at just a 90-degree angle from here. Just this natural 90. So we do that, we'll connect all these little digits. That one's all folded up, meaning that this finger's all tucked away in here, like so. You got this other knuckle, which comes up like that. Kind of goes out at an angle this time, kind of like that, but meets at the base right there. Kind of give it that kind of look to it. All these other fingers are going to be hidden though, so we don't really have to draw those in if we don't want to. That's why you do the frontal fingers first, as I think I mentioned before. We're going to have to lighten this up a bit. I'm using a kneadable eraser, which essentially is just Play-Doh. They're very good. They're sculptable, rubbable. They usually do a better job at picking stuff up than other erasers. Results may vary. Get this all nice and put in there. You got thumb right here, and that kind of comes down over the angle right here, wraps around the front. I see a lot of people draw it where the thumb comes across like right there, and it really does look unnatural. You want the thumb to come across right there. And remember, when you're drawing hands, usually you'll have reference. I don't know, maybe you don't have hands, but you should have reference. So just look at your hands a lot while drawing. There's no reason you can't. Hands are easy to they're not easy to master, but they're always readily available. So if you do want to master it, it should be fairly easy and more accessible than other things you want to draw a lot. Now we have ourselves a basic hand going in like that. Just kind of finish that up, make it look a little more pretty. Got that thumb in there. Very nice. And as for before, you can add in all the detail. You got the knuckle right here, obviously, which is where that ball is. That's why I draw those in, because it kind of helps to detail the knuckles later on, you know? Get all these in. Add some creases in there. You don't want to add too many, but just enough, you know? Adding more creases usually makes it look a little more dynamic. Makes it look like there's some stretch to the skin, you know, like there's a lot of power behind that punch. That's just one example of a fist, though. Now, I think for the very last thing, we're going to do one looking face on. I'm going to scoot that over there so that it's a little more in frame. What we're going to be doing is drawing the same pentagon shape as from before up here and over here. Now, I'm going to cheat a little bit and just do all of the fingers in one, okay? Now, when drawing a fist, you can always do it like this, where you kind of do a rounded off thing, and then you got your thumb over here, and then you got all your little fingers. And that looks fine. I mean, It's not great, though. It looks very stale. It looks like, rather than, getting ready to punch, they're just kind of like holding it there. It looks boring. What you want is to get something a little more dynamic. We're going to do the same thing where it's kind of raised up. I'm having a hard time getting my hand in angle for this one to kind of demonstrate, but I will show you. When you're making a fist, if you want to make it look like it has a lot of power, you don't want just that stale kind of look like that. You really want to flex it like that. The way I think of it is, all of these fingers are fighting for space. They're all trying to get as much into the hand as they can, resulting in this kind of really clenched look, which is just kind of like another one of those off pentagons. It goes up like that, down like that, down like that, over there, and up there. So I'm just going to draw that. Kind of tapers down to this end because the pinky is smaller, of course. And then there's that. And then, from there, suppose this fist is just coming right at us. We got to add in the thumb. Now, the thumb is over yonder, of course, tucked away inside of itself, like that. Kind of obscured back there. I'm going to hide that part. And then the thumb kind of sticks out over here. There's that knuckle. This part comes towards the front, like that. And as I was saying before, you don't want the thumb to go up there. It goes under. It tucks at kind of like a weird 90-degree angle under there. So that's going to go like that. And when it tucks in, it only really goes to about halfway of the second finger. So imagining we have all these blocked out, we're going to take it, bring it to about there. Make sure this finger is in the foreground, at least to an extent. And then, once we have all of our fingers kind of roughened out, we can go back and add all that sweet, sweet detail. So, I'm going to take these and I'm going to round off the edges as before, kind of add in that blockiness that they have. Maybe this one's kind of, at a little bit of an angle like that. They got that little crease in there. The webbing between your fingers. Then that comes down, kind of tucks in behind that one. Got that one over here, this one up here. Block out the little circles where you're going to put your knuckles. And I'm just going to start detailing those. The knuckles make kind of a little ridge, this little bumpy hill design that you'll see right here. They don't really overlap, they just kind of sit like that, you see. When looking dead on at least. And then they just kind of roughened up there. They look all nice, You got that. Extend these up just a tad. Maybe not that far. I may have gone too far in a few places to quote a famous filmmaker. Got that. Gonna add in that thumbnail. Maybe over here. Maybe round that thumb off a little bit more. We got that. We got that. Add in the creases over here for the thumb because it is stretching around. Make sure that's overlapping. Make sure that's overlapping. Add those in. And voila! You got yourself a hand. A beautiful, perfectly normal human hand, to an extent. Take a look at that. Not too shabby if I do say so myself. I'm going to bring that thumbnail down a bit more because the thumb doesn't really point at a straight 90-degree angle like that when it's on the bottom of the fist, but it doesn't point that way either. It points kind of in between. So it's pointing less straight down, less towards us, and more just kind of Got it? Cool. And then from here we could of course block in the rest of the hand if we wanted to. Of course using foreshortening, which is a completely different technique. Get all that in there. Oh, I suppose we got that. And then you got your bicep up here. And then if we wanted to, we can make it a little more cartoony. clock and all that, but we're not here to talk about arms. We're here to talk about hands. And that's what I taught you about. This video has been about 25 minutes long now, and I hope that you've learned something, at least the very basics of constructing a hand. Something that I'm sure there are other people who have made tutorials about. But I'm glad you chose mine. Thank you for watching, as always. I appreciate you guys. And, until next time.